Hello and welcome to this new episode of Odoo Unplugged. Today, new episode, new guests, and I have artists with me. You know, they paint, they draw, they sculpt, and more importantly, they take care of the UI of Odoo. Hi guys.
Hello, Olivier.
So let's start by introducing yourself. You go first?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Chrysanthe. I've been working at Odoo for a bit more than 2 years now. And actually quite interesting, I've been joining the team in the middle of the web client redesign we did for Odoo 17. So I've been witnessing all the changes in the UI, so quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Claire, and I'm an intern here as a UI UX designer. I joined Odoo a few weeks ago, and hopefully some more.
You started very strongly by going into this episode directly.
And I'm Stefano. I work at Odoo since a bit more than 10 years now, and I'm the product lead designer at Odoo.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so to start, maybe, just in case, what is a designer doing exactly at Odoo?
A designer can do a lot of things, but in Odoo is a bit special, I would say. Our role is a bit hybrid, I would say.
What would be the typical view people have of the job before the specificities of Odoo?
Normally, what the designer does, it depends. The discipline is very huge and complex, but normally what you do is, of course, taking care about the visual result of the product itself. I mean, by creating mock-ups and interacting with other professionals like a UX expert or product owners or development and a specific stage. Why I say that is a bit different in Odoo is because we do code also. So let's say that our scope is a bit wider. And this is part of a strategy, let's say, that we have to do internally. For everything is related to the product, but maybe we can discuss it later. Or now?
Sure. We can.
We
can discuss it now. Go ahead. So, how do you decide what to do then? Because it's a bit abstract like that. You know, you have the product. You have to make it evolve. What would be like the way of doing that? What is the process behind that? And maybe what is the philosophy? Are there like rules you have to follow? I don't know, a tablet of stone thrown by God in some bush somewhere with all the design principles you have to follow.
Yeah, there are the good practice, of course, but let's say that we also make our own rules. So this is a bit make things easier.
You made your own tablet of stone.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. In a way, we do a very short cycle of discussion, about what we plan for the future, what we want to do, and so we decide guidelines internally about our design workflow and process. We have to take in account that Odoo growth is exponential in terms of features, and we have to interact with a lot of different teams, and we don't have always control on what happens on the Odoo product, because again, the growth is so fast that it's difficult to keep track. So what we did is to invest on a fast cycle development method, meaning that since we are involved in the coding itself of the features, we can keep track of what is going. I mean, our iteration cycle is very short, so we can jump directly in the task and implement what we designed.
Sometimes, so you will have something that will have been added into Odoo by another team that you will have to rework. I think most of the time, actually, you will have to rework to make it visually better, and so that means you will need sometimes to touch the code of that feature a bit to adapt things.
Yes,
so it must be sometimes kind of challenging, right? Because you have to at least understand the philosophy of that feature. And I don't know, I'm from accounting, so I know that sometimes it can be a bit strange for people not working in accounting. Isn't it sometimes a bit difficult to do that? How do you cope with that?
Let's say that the Odoo company culture helps a lot because it really fosters collaboration between people from different teams. But it's true that we having to work with a lot of different teams, and each team has its own philosophy sometimes, different approaches, as you said. Sometimes it's a bit challenging, but it's also very interesting because this way you can really interact with almost every development team in Odoo. And
how does it feel then the first time it happens? So since you're brand new in the company, you must know the first time you have to work like that. How does it feel to have to get your head around so many things to get into it?
To be honest, since my professor was kind enough to teach me a little bit of everything, I was able to learn faster here. But it's quite challenging to actually have to understand how other teams work, because some teams would be more focused towards the back end, of course, because it's the core of the functionality of the app, and others would be more focused toward how the app looks and how it presents itself. So yeah, each I haven't had the chance to work with a lot of different people, but honestly, it's quite it's new. Like coming from a person that's used to work by myself with school projects and stuff. So yeah, it's quite challenging to adapt and have like a profile of, okay, this team works like this and this team would work like this, and adapts.
It's something Anthony, so Anthony is the CTO of Odoo. If you still don't know him, you're missing something. And Anthony often says that every team in R&D is like a small startup, and it's true, because we all have our little culture, and of course we do interact when it's needed, but not always that much. At least for teams like mine that are less transversal and have really this dedicated scope that no one wants to mess with, essentially. So yeah, it's interesting to have this kind of position. Also, something that is pretty unique, actually. You don't have a product owner. I mean, you have Fabien directly.
Yes.
So you have the CEO directly, and he's the one you're discussing all the design changes with, or at least the big things, I suppose.
Yeah, Fabien is surprisingly involved in a lot of design decisions.
Odoo's his baby, yeah.
Yeah, it's his baby.
The design is the thing that you sell to people first and foremost. I mean, before having the features, before having the opportunity of showing any feature, people will have an idea of your software just by looking at, like, maybe not the logging page, but just the thing just after. So, of course, it's super important.
Yeah, it's super important. And they say that, for example, Fabien is very involved on that. It's difficult to find a company, I think, except very small startup, probably, in which a CEO is directly involved on the position of a button, move it to the left, to the right. We usually normally have a huge debate with Fabien deciding these kind of strategies, and it's really refreshing,
That's the Odoo methodology.
Yeah, to work in
argue,
an environment where everyone is so much focused and involved on the product itself.
And so, when does it often happen that Fabien is the one bringing something like? I'm asking the question, but I actually already know the answer. I saw something in this or that other software, or we need to do something like that, and then it triggers the discussion.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it happens a lot. We normally receive a lot of feedbacks from Fabien, from product owners. I have to say that 90% of the tasks we process are managed by ourselves internally. I mean, those are internal feedback that we have in our team, because we have a roadmap, to improve the product in the medium-long run, and we manage this task in order to achieve this result. But of course, we gather a lot of feedback from a lot of different sources, and Fabien is one of those. And
how do you work on possible new features, new visuals then? I guess sometimes there must be like the need of having some proof of concepts for what you're doing also, some visual convince maybe, because it's not, I mean, I'm not at all a visual guy, so maybe for you it's obvious, but saying, okay, I'm going to change that and it's going to look like this, like by heart, I can't do that. So I guess, I don't know, is it like this for you? Do you visualize everything beforehand, or do you need to try it first and then iterate more, or how does it work?
There is a huge iteration phase, let's say. It really depends about the task. Sometimes straightforward, we know exactly what we want, and we try our best to achieve that. Then we have what we call investigation tasks. We know that there is an issue, or we know that there is room for improvement. We don't know yet what we want to do, but we know that there is something to tickle there. And then we open this investigation task where we try different things. And yeah, but I think that it's part of the designer nature to be able to visualize in your mind a different result somehow, even before getting the result. But something that we noticed, for example, is that sharing this skill, let's say, with other departments or team is very useful as well, because sometimes you're in these meetings where there are PRIO, there are developers, no one really agree on what we should do, and broughting a mock-up, helps everyone to align somehow on the final result we want to achieve. So in a way, design has this unlocking feature,
Sure, and I think it's really something that that helps a lot indeed. Okay, I have an accounting anecdote. Come on, I'm gonna tell it. It's a very recent one. But there is a feature we added recently in accounting. So in 18.3, test it on Runbot now. It's the returns. So very nice feature. Essentially, it's a to-do list of things to do in your accounting. But so you have a list of everything like that. That thing, we discussed of putting something like that last year, but it was too abstract. So we didn't have any visual, anything. And so this discussion was pretty difficult because we were not aligned on the thing to do. And I think the people that were against it, they didn't see the benefit of it. But it's obvious actually, because you need to have worked with those flows a lot to have an idea of the impact it can have on the actual workflow in Odoo. And of course, if you just have the idea of those flow and didn't really work on them yourself or program things in them, it's too abstract actually. And so you don't see the benefit. And so this got cancelled last year. We didn't do it, and the discussion came back somehow, not from me. So I don't know who did that, but thank you. This year, and then it went first through mockups, and those people that were super against it were now all for it. So and we eventually merged it. So it's really the design is doing everything. It gives the idea of the thing directly to people, and the design is far from perfect for them. But I think you have a task to improve that somehow. In the past, right? So we'll see you in 19. So, and I don't know if you have other examples like that where you had discussions where the mock-up or the visual or some proof of concept changed everything.
No, I think it happens a lot actually. We have some features, or we'll talk about it later, but we have some features, for example, that are a bit abstract for the product owner or for stakeholders, and so we have to design a proof of concept first to show that this work, and we have to provide something to discuss. So for example, we have some things ongoing for the mobile, for example, and we provided some proof of concept to the product owner and to Fabien to explain then how we can rearrange the content, how we can emphasize some elements. And so it's really important, and it happens a lot, of course, but it's part of the job, like to bring something to the table and to allow people to discuss, because everybody is a designer actually. So
especially in Odoo.
Yeah.
Everybody is a bit of everything in Odoo, frankly. That's also the core of our way of working, and maybe what makes it most unique. And I think we've said that in pretty much every episode, but it's true. We like to have transversal people, and so if you do everything at the same time, it's cool. But so sometimes, indeed, that brings people feel more comfortable arguing about pretty much everything, which is great. But of course, you need at some point you need to take decisions. You need to have something to agree on, and indeed, and then having the design, of course, helps. Also, you mentioned the product owners. We've said product owners a few times, even POs, I think. Product owners are the ones designing tasks. But if you don't know that, it's because you didn't watch the episode about product owners. Go watch the episode on product owners. It was super cool. But so those guys don't have a developer background, at least most of them. And so, of course, when you need to communicate with them, you don't always speak the same language. And again, for functional teams like mine, like inventory, product owners have this functional background in their app, and sometimes there is all the jargon coming with it. There is the way of expressing things, and when you need to discuss with people that have like developer background, you need to have some common language to discuss, and sometimes it's difficult, especially when it comes to visual elements and so on, because we just don't have the same approach. And something developers do all the time, for example, is using like names of HTML tags or class names, and just to say, yeah, it's obvious, it's that thing, and then you have the PO like, what the hell are you talking about? Yeah, okay. But so for this kind of things as well, having an ability to show things is better, because show don't tell.
Yeah, exactly.
Always the same principle. We mentioned the fact that
in a way we are a bit on the middle ground, I will say, because we are not developers, but we are coders, and we do handle the final result on screen that is very specifically on the PO side, let's say, So in a way we are kind of in the middle. We relate with both of them. Sometimes we actually mediate, providing mock-ups, trying to illustrate visually the developer's idea, So yeah, it makes perfectly sense.
So we mentioned the fact that a lot of argument is involved in the process. What would you say about the mindset we work on the UI? I think you have a pretty interesting point of comparison with another company you worked for.
Oh yeah.
Can you explain?
The thing that I noticed, like within the first few moments that I got here, is that here, like you said previously, everyone does a little bit of everything here. So it's, in a way, it's easier to communicate, as you said, but also like we are more focused toward the product here. So the responsibility of working, I'd say, is like you can just think about the product and let's just, how can I don't know how to articulate this, but more like your focus.
What would be the focus if it's not on the product?
Like some company would focus more towards the money or the revenue. I wouldn't say that like a company should have benefits, right? Because like your goal is to sell.
Sure.
But when as an employee your focus is more toward the product and improving it, then you can, I feel like your scope of responsibility is lighter, and I would say for a day-to-day workflow it's easier to and more convenient, or I wouldn't say convenient actually. I would say comfortable actually.
I think this way of working, people will just get more involved in what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, the product will be better, and normally you should sell more as well.
Yeah.
But so it's because the product is better. And it's true that everything that we do, this is always the primary focus. And I think it's pretty interesting, yeah. So
I'd say it gives like a purpose to what you do, because when like previously in the other company, as I said, is when you only think about having like targets to sell and stuff, and you, even though like sorry, the company would say, we focus towards the experience or anything else, like it kind of still feels like sugarcoating. But here, like I haven't had the chance to talk with our CEO yet, but by the interviews that I got, he, like you can feel that he's really passionate about the product. And so even like when I talk to people around me about the product and I'm myself convinced about how it works, I really do, like I transmit and like not the passion, but like when you see that something works and can be improved, like so it can only get better, the other people sorry, they can only like see your passion, and
Mm.
so it really gives a purpose. I would say the main thing about what I got from Odoo's culture is purpose from what we're doing.
Sometimes this can become kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because people are more invested, so people are more passionate. So when they argue about something they don't
Yeah.
agree on, they argue stronger. And I guess sometimes you must face like change resistance, right? People be like, no, it needs to be like that. And why is that? So because I've always known it like that and I like it this way. Is it something that happens often?
Yeah, it happens often. But as you say, I mean, the root cause is the fact that people do care. And of course, there are people with different backgrounds. And we do get the point that for some people it's comfortable to see the UI to have always the same aspect. They know exactly where to find things. They know exactly how things are supposed to be showcased. So we do get that is normal. But it's true that we also face resistance to change, sometimes for other teams, sometimes for ourselves. Is a bias that as a designers we are used to deal with. But of course, when we work on other modules and we have to relate with other teams, we are a bit of like diplomats, of this kind of scenario. We have to explain, we have to guide our stakeholders to these different decisions, So yeah, resistance to change is part of the job. But in a way, it's also challenging for us. It also helps us to refine our ideas, and it doesn't really mean that we are always right. Sometimes having this debate helps us to either refine what is not right or reinforce eventually our ideas if we are sure that it's actually what we are supposed to do.
The thing, like in my opinion, since it's still a field where most of the things are subjective. The fact that all of us have a different eye on things, like you said, it could be like a double-edged sword. Because so we can be, it could be a force because you can have different perspective, but also you can have like the resistance of change. But I feel like each and one of us, as a newcomer, I noticed that everyone is aware of that. So when we see like a resistance, like I've seen people say, like, wait, let me have a second, I'll get back to it, and then they at the end see that, okay, it's just because I was not used to it and not because it doesn't work. So I feel like the awareness of how we function as human is actually like a good thing, because like you just need to be aware of it as a
And sometimes it can also bring things that were completely disregarded by the team. You had an example recently with accounting on that, right?
Yeah.
Tell us. It's I'm giving you the authorization to bash accounting. You can go for it.
Okay. So
Just don't give names.
So I had the so for instance, I had the exchange with someone in accounting, and I was discussing one of our tasks. So there was like should I go into detail of it?
Go ahead.
So the header would not be fixed when we scroll horizontally because the table would be too large for the viewport.
On what screen?
It was
On the mobile screen.
the report.
The report. Yeah.
Okay.
But then I was talking with that person and saying, we're working on that mobile display view. And then the first thing that they said to me is, but the mobile doesn't exist. And I was like, wait, what? And I like, for real, I thought that that was a thing. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? Like, it doesn't exist? And so when I had the talk with my team leader, he was like, oh, I think I get what they mean. And I was like, please explain to me because I don't get it. And then he said, because for some field and flow of work, the mobile actually doesn't make sense to begin with. Let's say for an accountant, nobody works on a mobile, right? And so
That there are
Please not for
certain
advanced
operations
flows.
Yeah.
that you are not supposed
Yes.
to
And
to
so I
execute
was
on
like,
mobile.
but if we give the chance to have access from a mobile phone, it should still look good
Yeah.
to me. So I was like, okay, now I get it, but we still have to work on it.
Yeah, and that's interesting because indeed, the infamous mobile does not exist in accounting. Somehow, yes, and indeed, as you say, who's going to do bank reconciliation on his mobile?
Yeah.
Or looking at a complex report with like 10 columns and then do comparisons, so duplicate the number of columns and drill down to the move lines and analyze everything on his phone. It's unlikely that people will really do that, though. The reports don't always have 10 columns, and maybe you just want to check something very quickly and you just want it to work. And even if it's not like top-notch comfortable to use, it needs to look like something, and the cleaner it will look, the more you will be like, wow, Odoo is whoa. And so it's not core features, it's not core flows, and it's things when we discussed that years and years ago, we were like, okay, never mind that for the moment. But eventually, what the culture of the team became for that is, well, mobile, no one will do that. But as you say, when someone does, it's annoying. And I think we've reached a point where having something cleaner everywhere, or at least usable and not being all on the phone, is important. Because again, for the end user, for us, we're like, yeah, it's because the screen is smaller, so the style is not working perfectly, but it's all the same. It's just the page looking a bit weird, but all the functionalities will work the same. But for someone just doing that and not having this developer background, it's buggy. It looks buggy, so it must be buggy.
Especially now that when we think mobile display, we think phone. But the thing is, nowadays, like a lot of people work on their iPad or tablet, so I feel like it's always a sensitive topic. But like, okay, let's say tablet, we can have it horizontally, then it would look like desktop and it would work. But then what if they take it vertically, so it would look like a phone, like the ratio, but then it wouldn't look good, and it should, because working on a tablet makes more sense than on the phone.
Sure.
So yeah, but my first advice as a newbie when I came is pick your fight. So there are some stuff that I will not argue apparently, and there are stuff that I will like fight.
Yeah.
No, it's not about arguing. What is that? Sometimes, for example, to prepare a view for mobile seems like something that should be straightforward. Just apply some CSS and whatever was big now becomes small, but it's not always the case. Sometimes you have to make decisions that are not just design decisions, are functional decisions, meaning that some stuff have to be hidden, some stuff have to be moved, the flow needs to be adapted accordingly. So it's not just about the visual change on screen. It implies deeper collaboration with product owners, deeper knowledge of the business type and the functionality.
Do we often have things like that where we say, this feature, we don't want it on mobile. We want it only when people use it on desktop, because otherwise the menus, the view, so it's going to be too messy. So we want to disable it really for mobile.
It
Does it happen?
happens. It's not very often, I would say. It's true that in the past, mobile was more like an afterthought. You do the entire functionality, you deploy it in production. It was there
And
for
you see how it
clients
goes on
for a
mobile,
couple of
yeah.
months, and then you finally start working on the mobile version. But nowadays, not, I will say. The new framework is versatile enough for us to move very fast on this kind of iteration. We can toggle and adapt classes. I mean, it's quite straightforward, I would say, mobile adaptation. Of course, there are corner case scenario like complex reports in accounting. That one is objectively complex, but it involves a lot of different skill set there. Again, we have to really get in touch with the product owner to ensure that functionality doesn't make sense on mobile, or that is too dangerous. Maybe we want to show the button but disable it on mobile by default. Or sometimes we can hide the features entirely, as you say.
So of course, then when you hide the feature, you never know if people will understand that it's just hidden on mobile, and it will not be like for half an hour. Where is it? Because they want it. And
Exactly. Yes.
so it's always a trade-off then.
Yeah.
it's time for a little break. So I suggest we cut here and we'll be back in a few minutes. and we are back for the rest of the episode. So we were discussing the challenges that you faced in your day-to-day work. I think something that we haven't mentioned yet is the fact that well, a lot of things happen in Odoo, in every team at the same time, and you're probably not always aware of everything, right? So, how does it work? How do you again manage that? Because sometimes it must be a bit frustrating, right? You have something like suddenly coming and it's ruining everything. Or did it happen that you see the brand new feature this or that team introduced, and you're like, oh damn, what did they do?
I will say that now we are more aligned in general. It happened much more in the past. Say when the company was younger and we were less people. It happens a lot still, and this is due to the fact that how we are organized R&D. We prefer fast development, of course, and also the fact that there are a lot of changes that comes from the community. There are thousands of developers around the world that contribute to the product, and of course those people operate externally from the company, so we don't really know them. We don't really follow all this process, and so sometimes, as you said, it happens that something got merged on master and we are not aware. So this is why we prefer this methodology, the one I told you before, of the fast iteration and the jump on the code directly. It allows us to be fast and to react fast on these changes. And this is, of course, way better than try to block this process. First, it will be counterproductive for the evolution of the product. And then it will be just impossible to put a design validation on each task.
Yeah, because that would mean we would need to recruit a lot more people for your team, and that would make everything slower, because we would have an additional review from the design team every time.
We will become the design police, you know, that if the button has the padding or this kind of stuff.
You don't want people to hate you in R&D.
We do prefer to agree on a framework and on guidelines and on a generic way of how things should look. For example, in the backend, we have all these classes that everyone loves to use, I hope, that define the design of each single component. So we do rely a lot on that, on the technical level of how things are implemented. And of course, since we are involved on the definition of the design of this component, we can evolve and keep track of what is going on.
Also about what is going on, we have the design contact thing. The design contact thing.
Yeah, sure.
This one is.
What is
so basically we started that a while ago, but we basically picked a set of modules for each of us, and we try to get in touch with product owner and to discuss with them. So basically the idea is that we try to be involved in the process and to onboard them with us. So when there is a good big feature that will be released, for example, for a major version or for a SaaS version, we try to know what is going on, so we can provide them design support if needed, or we can jump on the task afterwards. So we try to keep an eye on the product without being, we are the designer, we have to jump on it, but just to let them know that we are there to assist them if we need. And so I think it's really nice to mention that.
It happens a lot when you're in a rush because of the freeze, that features are merged very fast, without a proper design check. I will not say check, but sometimes the developer is aware that there's room for improvement, but there's just not.
Without the final touch.
Indeed. So even in that case, even knowing that there is a task ongoing that will gonna touch that specific feature and will need design support at one point, this is something we try to keep track of. This is the role Chrysant was talking about.
And how do you do that in practice? Because the product owners, well, of course, they have many things to do. And so you're coming to them and being like, okay, could you just tell me what big things you're working on? And then you look at it by yourself, or you ask more explanation on them to the PO directly, or you just go talk with the developer? How?
So we try to keep an eye of the pipeline, basically. So we check a bit what's going on, and we try to reach out to the product owner to ask them what's going on in their scope. So basically the idea is that if they have something to tell us, they will tell us, and if they have nothing, then it's fine. So this is the initial flow, I would say, and that's how it works mainly.
Okay, and does it sometimes happen that something is like such a big change that you're like, wow, for the user experience, it's gonna be messy, and that you need to try to go back to something visually closer to what was there before, just out of pure, I would say, well, care for what the user would think of it, and existing users, how they would react to that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we do take in account that people are resistant to change sometimes, especially when things work well.
Sure.
It's difficult to sell the fact that there will be an improvement. So yeah, we try to take it in account, and we try to limit as much as possible this kind of frictions. But here again, if we have to make the product evolve, it must be evolved also by a visual style. So we can't avoid friction somehow. But in my experience, every big change we had in the Odoo, in the UI of Odoo along the years, after the first initial phase of little resistance, I would say, then things went smoother, and people get used eventually to the new designs.
There was there is like typical example. It's a few years. It's been a few years, but a few years ago we completely changed the style of the entirety actually of the UI of Odoo, right? Maybe we can open a run bot now. Actually, it's time for screen sharing. Come on,
Okay.
open that computer. So maybe open a V16 first, just to show what was there before. Spoiler.
Yeah, I just went back to time. Okay, let me open this one. Yeah, so of course performance is improved a lot since V16.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting to mention.
So just for people to understand, this is Runbot, so it's a tool for testing essentially. You can use the same URL if you want. Go play with it. Feel free. And so this is Odoo as it used to be. So open maybe I don't know. I would say accounting, but you can
It's not
pick the one you want.
Okay, so we have the dashboard.
Maybe we can switch to how it is now. So that's how it used to be, and we changed everything. So we can open.
Sure.
We changed everything to have something that was essentially much lighter, much cleaner, and I would say one of the big things that, well, at least the feeling it gave, I remember, everything seems more spaced and more open, actually. So this kind of big change, how did it happen? What's the trigger for that? Because that's huge, like it's touching all of Odoo here.
There is not a real trigger, I will say. There is a magic moment where when everyone agrees that something has to be done. And luckily, when we reach the stage, normally we already have plenty of draft put aside, and we can already start a discussion, having something visual that we can interact with. What we see right now, that is the current version of the design. Yes, this is a variation, let's say, of a different draft we did in the past. I'm talking about the version 16 and the 14, I think. Also, I think that the very oldest draft is version 12. It was very close to, I don't want to say very close, but it was somehow in this line, much brighter, much space out. So one of the other challenges we have is to be reactive and to be ready to respond to these changes. When when everyone in the companies agree that something has to be done, luckily we are already there with something that we can propose.
And I don't know how do you test that? How do you because we talked about the mockups, but so for something that is touching everything like that, because I assume there might be situations where a design change might be a very good decision for this screen, standard one, so not a custom view like this one. A big change for this one, a good idea, and for another one, it would just ruin everything or make things actually look more complex because, well, you have, I don't know, you have more fields, you have more buttons, more. There is something in that view that is just more messy than in the other from a certain perspective, and the change you're doing is putting that it's emphasizing it. So, did you work like with multiple typical views, I don't know, the form view of an invoice, of a task in project and stuff like that, and just compare them, or some other methodology?
Well, depends by the task. In this specific case, for the backend, of course, we had to pass through all the views, and we have to check that all the components were compliant with the design line we wanted to follow.
So each time you did a proof of concept and you played with it, or it was just mock-ups?
Normally we pick the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
If the design we want to propose works in the worst case scenario, that normally is by worst I mean the most complex one. The famous accounting report, But no, just kidding. What I mean is that if we succeed to make it work in that scenario, chances are that it will work on a simpler scenario as well. And this is the methodology we normally follow. And for the rest, we do a mock-up phase that normally we try to keep as light as possible, and then we jump on a fast iteration phase directly in the code. I think that one of the most common frustration for designers in general in the world is the fact that sometimes what you design is not exactly what you see on screen, probably because the technology is not there yet, or because I don't know, your software doesn't include the libraries that are used to achieve that specific result. So having to deal with the code for us means that we have control on what finally we will get, and we can eventually adapt our mockups accordingly to what it's actually possible to do. And as a side effect, this help us to handle disciplines like accessibility, for example. We don't design things that are not accessible compliant, we took care about contrast, but we also handle.
There was the dark mode. When was it? A few years ago.
Yeah, it was for the Odoo first version.
You
was
guys
16.
saved my eyes,
Yeah, so we introduced the first version for Odoo 16, and it was reworked for Odoo 17 to adapt to the new design we introduced for the web client, of course.
And so there are other things regarding accessibility like that, visually speaking, that can be interesting, you were saying. So it's not just the dark mode.
About accessibility, yes. But strictly speaking, there will be a lot of changes in version 19 on the design side. We will introduce new functionality for the e-commerce platform. We will introduce new snippets, new design for the front end, revamped UX behavior for mobile. Maybe Crisante will show you something later on. But in terms of accessibility, what we want to do is to introduce a high contrast mode. It's something that is a bit in between what we normally provide with the software in bright mode and the high contrast mode that you can trigger with your OS, like Apple or Windows. You have these options to really increase the contrast. It's something in the middle. Is to help users that have a reduced vision, but it's not too severe, or to help you handle, I don't know, shop floor management in a situation where the light conditions are not optimal.
The screen would be a bit.
So we increase the contrast, and this is something we would like to implement for version 19 together with the law.
True, because also you mentioned it, but I think it's interesting because I'm going to put a bit more of emphasis on it. Colorblind people, and it's not that obvious because we say colorblind. I don't know if any of you is colorblind. Hi for those listening to us, but it's not one thing. There are multiple kind of colorblindness, and so that means you cannot have like the colorblind mode that will fit everyone and it will work, because not everyone sees the colors in the same way, and not everyone can distinguish them in the same way either. And of course, when you want to, like in the screen you have buttons that are darker. It's to put emphasis on them and say, click me. And so of course, if they can see the difference between the color of these buttons and the other ones, you're missing the point. And so having means of setting up these kind of things is interesting, because then more people will be able to use the software. And again, it's a selling point. People, the first contact they have with the product is
a legal requirement, and it's also
it's even legal.
Yeah, sure. For WCAG, yes, we have to ensure a minimum level of usability. And it's also, I will say that it's also a commitment. They say that you can measure the level of how much a society, is good based on how they treat people with disabilities. No, it's one of the first way to rank civilization based on that, and so it's a commitment on our side. Of course, we do our best and we try to take care about everything. There are some details that we may miss, but if we are on the task, we try to add the right area attribute, on every element we have to work with.
I guess it's just also a continuous effort, because of course there's always priorities, and priorities tend to compete with each other, and well, you said it in another context, but it's the same. You have to pick your fights, and sometimes you have to say, okay, we're going to do this, and this for this version, and the rest it will be for the next one and the one after, because none of us is Superman. I think. Otherwise, tell me. And of course, at the end of the day, you need to choose a subset of the things, of the whole list of things to do, and work on them and do them right before doing the rest. It's normal. It's part of of any kind of development. Actually, if you start developing something by wanting to do everything at the same time, it will never work. Never ever work, because it's just not the way it works. One of the first things you're taught at school, at university, is you have to cut the problem into multiple pieces and solve them one by one, and then make them work together towards the solution. That's like the core of the discipline, and it's exactly the same here.
But in this case, sometimes it also depends by it's a little shift in mindset, I would say, because if you develop the entire feature, I don't know, 400 lines of code, and then as an afterthought, you have to jump on that XML and add all the little attributes and ensure, then it will become really a burden. But if meanwhile you code, you add the attributes directly during the development phase, it's actually quite straightforward. If you add the right class in the right place and you add the right attribute in the other place, at the end of the day, HTML and our framework will take care of all the rest.
Exactly.
So it's not a big deal at the end.
True. But maybe, because since you're mentioning again, it's touching against the communication with the POs and the fact we want to raise awareness on that and make sure that the dialogue with the design team is established. You have to. It's like the contact is made. How did it evolve through time? Since we have a dinosaur there, you're older in this company than I am, which is not the case of everyone. So
they gave me a
your hair just became whiter. How did it evolve through times? Because I assume at the beginning there was just nothing for taking care of design, no structure, whatever. You were there at the very beginning of it, then.
Yeah. I have to say that when I entered the company, there was no such a thing like a design culture, I would say. I was hired in a first round of hiring process for designers, but the workflow was not there, the culture for design was not there. Everyone agreed that it was a need, but no one really know how to manage this process, But something that really struck my mind at the time was the fact that people were actually studying, As soon as me and other two colleagues enter in the company as a designers, we start relating with other people. We realized that there was no common ground, common vocabulary in some cases, because we could not, understand each other for some specific stuff. But I saw people actually studying the design in a way, trying to make effort to understand each other. And this, at that time, really told me, okay, this is the right place for me. In a way, I was a freelancer before. I was dealing with clients and all the rest. And finally, at the time, I found a place where I found people really involved in the process, in the product, and that were aiming for collaboration.
Yeah, it must be great to have like the full history of it like that and be like, wow, we did a lot of things.
Yeah, that's true.
Congratulations.
Surviving.
We're reaching the end of the episode, so we still have a few minutes, and I think it's time for the teaser trailer. So you have things to show that you're working on at the moment, and that are so for the next version of Odoo. So in September, can you show us?
Yeah, sure. So we have a couple of things ongoing, and this is only like a brief showcase of what's going on, but of course there is more to come. So I think this one is quite interesting since we were talking about the mobile. So basically this is the mobile view of Odoo right now. So if I open maybe another one here, we can see that we basically wrap all the action into the cog.
Mm-hmm.
So we had this menu here containing everything. The idea here is to introduce a new component. So we call it the bottom sheet. And basically, these components allow you to interact with the view you're working on. So for example, here, if I open the cog menu, you can see that now we have this menu that slides from the bottom, containing everything. So much more cleaner, much more accessible. It's much cleaner in the view, basically, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe another example, if I go here to set a deadline, so the date picker, same thing, it's being adapted.
Mm-hmm.
So as you can see, everything is basically more accessible and more easy for the user to perform the action. So basically, this is a big focus this year. It's like totally improving the experience on mobile for the basic action you want to perform. On the front-end side, we have a couple of things ongoing. So if you...
No spoilers, huh?
Yeah, no spoilers. But if you catch I guess you guys catch the roadmap online. So one of the things we're working on is the e-commerce.
Mm-hmm.
So this implies some reworks of the pages, but we also introduced some new snippets. So we selected a few of them here. So as you can see, we have some categories thing with animations.
Mm-hmm.
So something really dynamic. We have this guy. So we basically try to push the boundaries of what we were doing for snippets.
I think we can all expect to see that in the keynote at the experience.
Yeah, definitely.
So there will be half an hour of this at the keynote, definitely.
Definitely. But it's a huge milestone, I would say. So there is a few snippets that are being developed and that are being oriented on the e-commerce theme. So this will come, of course, with the e-commerce redesign we are talking about, and you might have seen some screens online. Still on the front end, we have other tasks ongoing. So this one is ongoing, so it's quite raw at the moment, but we plan to rework the blog. So here, for example, we're working on a new feature to allow the user to promote an article. So basically, we would like to allow user to emphasize on an article which was not possible before. So we have some interesting layout variation that are coming. So here you can see one with these sticky articles. So all these things are coming normally for the Odoo 19. And of course, you will have to join the Odoo experience to catch everything, but
and to get the final version, because
Yeah.
everything can change.
Exactly,
This is not merged, so
No,
this
this is not merging.
this is all work in progress.
Yeah, but you get the idea. Like it's
maybe
gonna
it'll be even better. For
it's gonna be a good release.
All right, so that was for the teaser trailer. Nice things to come. Don't forget to join Odoo Experience. And with this, it's the end of the episode. So thanks, you guys. You could feel free to come back.
Thank you, Olivier.
Thank you, guys. I think we managed to explain the way the workflow was pretty deeply, so that's nice. We've shown a few things. We've given a bunch of insights on how to do it. So if you're a partner and want to work on UI, you can copy our methodology. Feel free. It's copyright free. Thanks, of course, to the audience for joining us, and see you in the next episode.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.